name is Natalie. I'm on the marketing team here at FMCA, and today I'm very excited to be speaking with David Staunton. He is from Denmark. He is a graduate of FMCA. He is now a practicing health coach, and he works remotely with clients all over the world. So thank you so much, David, for being here today and welcome.
Thank you very much. No, it's great to be here.
So let's go back to the beginning. Can you tell me what you were doing before becoming a student at FMCA?
Oh yeah. So I used to be a corporate strategist working for technology companies. So yeah, solving big problems and thinking using my brain basically. It was like a very, cognitively rich role, and I did that for well over 10 years before I became a health coach.
Very cool. And so then what brought you to functional medicine and ultimately health coaching after that experience?
Yeah, so around 5.5 years ago, in the space of a week, I contracted COVID, and then I had a massive shingles infection in my face and in my eye, my scalp, and my ear. And it was literally like being hit by a bus. That was the kind of, and I went
Oh,
from someone who was, when people say, like I was climbing mountains, and I was literally climbing mountains, and, I could get up in the morning, cycle 100 miles, like no problem, and very active. And I went and I couldn't finish a sentence, couldn't walk across the room. And yeah, so I went from being, like relatively healthy to literally being as if I'd been hit by a bus overnight. And I mean, it was obviously very scary. And it was the time, at the time of the pandemic, so I wasn't able to speak to doctors, and I ended up in hospital. And I was told you know, after I came home, and I was still so sick. If I started a sentence, I wouldn't be able to finish it. It's like crawling around on my hands and knees, and it's like really just really ill. And obviously, I'm saying to the doctors, what's happening to me, and they're like, just don't worry. It's like post-viral fatigue, and you're going to be better in a month. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to take this month, and and then everything will be fine. I have no reason to not believe them. And in a month's time, I was so much sicker than I was at the beginning, which was pretty difficult to begin with. And it just became really obvious very quickly that no one had absolutely any idea how to help me get better. And so my doctor, what is now, a kind of like a very famous conversation in my mind, um, said to me basically, the sooner you get used to this is how your life is going to be, the better it's going to be for you, and that you won't be able to get better. And so I was just thinking, I was just, I was so opposed to that idea on so many levels. But at the time I was 38. And so it's, like you're giving me basically a death sentence at 38, and you're going to tell me that the rest of my life is going to be like this. And so that was when it began, this journey of, okay, like how do I fix myself? And because I really fundamentally believed there was a reason that I got sick. And so there was a reason then I could get better. That was my logic behind it all. And so like in my very fatigued, and I was in so much pain, like drugged up to my eyeballs, and on painkillers, and I just began this journey of like trying to fix myself. And so my journey into functional medicine has nothing to do with functional medicine, because I didn't know it existed. I had no idea until many years later, actually. And what I believed was that, if I understood the root cause and that I focused on that, then I could fix my body and allow my body to heal. And that the root cause wasn't just, a simple thing, it was a complicated thing. And there were many different factors that were involved in it. So I started, I became my own functional medicine doctor. I became my own functional medicine health coach. I became my, everything. And I built all the protocols for myself, and I did them all. And I managed to Yeah, well, I'm sure we'll come on to that, but I managed to heal myself completely. But my first intro into it was instinctively coming to the same conclusion that we have in functional medicine now, and that I'm able to, be so confident with so many other people in the world. But at the very beginning, for me, it was just like my experiment on me, and with, no real knowledge that I was going to get better, but I just really needed to and believed that I would.
Yeah, you have to believe there has to be another way. I'm not going to accept that death sentence. So then coming today, how are you using your health coach certification, making an impact on your clients and your community? And I would love to know more, a little bit about what the health coaching landscape is like in Denmark.
Hmm. So, so I work with clients who are really suffering, like really, really suffering from chronic fatigue, long COVID, fibromyalgia, MECFS, all of these kind of, conditions. Um, and so if you're fatigued and you're in pain, like I'm the right person to come to. And it is I work with people, or more often, I will work with people who feel like they've got to the end of their journey. And so they've tried everything, they might have been battling with their conditions for 10, 20, 30 years. And so they're coming to me to be able to really understand what is the puzzle of why they got ill. And that's, like that's really my job, is to say that, there's a reason, just like in my story, right? There was a reason that I got so sick, but my story didn't begin the week that I caught COVID. My story began decades before, history of trauma and perfectionism and, all of these things, like in my life, driving decisions and patterns of behavior and limiting beliefs. And so, really understanding how someone has got to this journey of where they're really like really seriously ill. It's not just about looking, okay, like what was the last thing that happened to you? It's about looking at them really in the whole and understanding where these fractures have happened in their life and how we can bring those back. And it's a lot about, if you're asking someone who's been ill for 20 years to just, like suddenly do something, well, it's not that simple. So, we have to work from where they are at the moment and to be able to introduce these things in a way that their body can receive them. And that's really, I think, like a very different approach that I take, that other practitioners don't take, really trying to understand, okay, well, as I say to my clients, the quickest way out of the mud is to first accept that you're in it. And so, like, whatever situation you arrive to me in, that's it. That's just the beginning of the new part of your journey. And so it's really complicated. It's never the same twice. And, it's like really understanding people for really truly who they are. And it's often discovering with my clients who that person is, because they don't even know themselves. And so they've been so, understandably, they've had this identity of a person who's really suffering, and I mean like genuinely really suffering for so long, that when you ask them, like, what do you do to have fun, what do you do to smile, they literally can't remember. And so we have to go back and we have to discover who this amazing person is, because all of these people are so resilient, are so powerful, are, are so engaged with their health, like are really motivated, and they've just, got lost and been abandoned like I was along the
Mhm.
way, and haven't had someone to help to guide them. And so that's really the work that I do. And it's, this transformation that people go through is so much more than just their health. It's almost like their health is like secondary, like we transform the person back to who it is that they're always meant to be. And then all of these other, it's like I call it the rewards that the body will give you, like when the body feels in alignment with who you are as a person, then it starts to feel better. It starts to heal. It starts to give you back more energy. You start to have less pain. And so that's the kind of, like the transformation that people go through. And the reason why they come to me is because I have been to the depths of what it's like to be really so ill that it feels like your life is over. And so, my journey is there are like many big stages in my journey. So, there's the initial part where I was really ill, and then there was getting back to work. I had 7 months off work. So I was getting back to work. And getting back to work when you're that sick in 7 months sounds like a long time, but it's actually really quick. And so there was going back and getting my life back and then healing that kind of like initial damage that was done. But then I realized actually you can heal so much more. So the goals that I had set myself were actually too low. And so I realized like, oh wow, like if I can fix my body in all of this way, then why can't I do more? And so then it became this other journey of like, how far can I go? And so, and that's inspiring for people because it's not just, I'm not just talking about just getting healthy. I'm talking about I'm so much healthier and happier now than I've ever been in my life. And it's because of this journey of, going from ill health. And so I wanted to really, really prove to everyone. This is what often lots of people see in like social media. I really wanted to prove, and so I ran a half marathon every week for 8 months.
Oh my goodness. Wow. That's,
Yeah, that used to be my weekends. That was
oh
my
my
weekends
goodness.
for
Yeah.
yeah, for eight
Crazy.
months. And
That's
so I just really wanted to show people that literally anything is possible. And so, for me, that's this. Like we don't, the body like, is capable of so many incredible things, and we just have to get the right environment in order for it to happen. And so that's the kind of like mindset, like it's the mindset, when a client comes to me, it's the mindset of a champion, of a winner, and it's like, okay, like how do we work together? And I'm like a coach in like the very kind of like the really like traditional sense of the word, right? Because I think they're amazing. And it's like, like how can we unlock this? And of course, for me as a coach and as a person who's intensely curious about everyone, like coming and really understanding these people and when someone says to you, this is the best I've ever felt in 15 years, or someone goes from surviving. That's what they tell you. Like, I'm not even living, I'm just surviving. And they're walking 20,000 steps a day 2 months later. It's like, it's absolutely incredible. And and it's not easy. It's not easy. It's not easy, but it's, every day my life is completely filled with just doing good for people. And that's a really incredible place to be.
That is so inspirational. It comes from a personal place, and I'm sure that is so empowering for you and then also your clients.
Mhm.
So, going back to FMCA, can you tell me a little bit about your experience as an FMCA student and what you enjoyed most about the program?
Well, I enjoyed all of it. Yeah, I enjoyed all of it a huge amount. I was really lucky to have Manaz as a course facilitator, and she's just a wonderful person to be able to
It's
show
lovely.
you, yes, to show you what coaching really is. And I think for me, um, it was around gaining confidence. So, like often actually a lot of the material I knew because I'd gone through this journey myself. So it wasn't necessarily that I didn't know what functional medicine was by then and, understood how the body worked and all of those kind of things. But I didn't feel confident to be able to sit in front of someone and say, like, I can help you. Like, really, I can help you. And I arrived at FMCA. Yeah, we talk about the coach approach. I had zero coach approach skills, zero, like literally zero. My whole career was to be the expert. That was it, like to know what the answer was. That was my job. And so that took like a really big reprogramming of myself to be able to step into that coach space. And it was just great. I just absolutely loved it. I was like, absolutely loved it. I was, really active in the community and I've made loads of friends um, and it was at the time where I moved from the UK over to Denmark. And so, like FMCA became my family of, and it was I learned so much about myself. I learned so much about how to be a better partner, to be a better friend, to be a better son, to be a better brother, to be a better uncle. All of these things that you don't think they're like bonuses because you think you're coming to learn how to coach people. And you think you know what that means, or I thought I knew what that meant. And I didn't realize how much I would change through this. And so it's hard to think about it in the terms of a year, like as a time frame, because when I think back and I think about it, I think about it as a period of transformation. And so if I said, if I put them on paper, all the transformations that I had, and I said, how long do you think that took? I would say maybe like 3 or 4 years. So it feels, like crazy, but in a great way to have compressed them all down into a year. And I arrived not knowing what to do, and I left so confident in me as a coach. And I think that's as someone who wanted to build a business, and so I really had to like be a coach. That was it, right? That was like, it was, I'm stopping my career, I'm starting a new one. This is the year that I'm going to train, and at the end of the year I have to launch my business, and it needs to be a success. And so I really left not knowing everything, of course, but knowing enough that I felt really, really confident to be able to step out into the world as a professional health coach.
That's wonderful. So at FMCA, we like to say that you're an FMCA graduate for life. And so, what
Mhm.
does the ongoing alumni connection and support look like for you, especially being international?
Yeah, so one of the kind of like highlights of my month actually is the International Connect, Collaborate and Build session. So we have a session, with and it's a mix between the graduates and the current students, and it's great. It's great because um, I think that as part of the international community, health coaching does look different in other countries. And, and it's when you're especially not in a system which is driven by insurance, and so there's almost no consideration at all, um, and very loose regulation and things like that, and and so you're really operating just in a very, very different model. Um, and so a lot of the things, the core fundamentals apply, of course, but there are a lot of differences. And so it's great to explore that with people and um, to be able to learn what it's like in different countries. And I think it's um, what's really amazing is that what really I really love, one of the things I really love about engaging with the current students and the alumni is that there's just so many people to help, and there's so few coaches. So there's two FMCA graduates in Denmark. There's just two of us, right? And I know the lady. She's a lovely, lovely, lovely lady. And but that's it, right? That's
Yeah.
I'm 50% of the functional medicine health coaches here. And so the opportunity is just really vast.
Mm.
And so people are really worried about, like, am I good enough often to be able to go out and do that? And um, and that's a big thing when you're a student. But the reality of the world is that there's so many people who need so much help, and it's, um, and there are, I love working with really complex cases, but that's not everyone in the world either, and so there's lots of people who just need a little bit of help, and that little bit of help can be absolutely transformational. So I'm a big cheerleader as well for just everyone like getting out there and doing it, and and like making your contribution and knowing your worth, and and making that transformation. It doesn't mean you have to be a full-time coach, but you should be out there coaching. If you've gone through FMCA, then you should be out there coaching because you're already, a world-class coach.
Yeah, you never know unless you try. And the more you work with clients, the more you grow and the better you
Hmm.
as a coach. So I'm sure you
Hmm.
each client you work with. So I would love to wrap this up with what would you say to someone who is considering embarking on the journey to becoming a functional medicine certified health coach? You sort of just spoke to this a little bit, but is there any other wise advice that you would give?
Yeah, I would say, firstly, I would say it's an excellent investment in your life, and it will change you in ways that you didn't even know were possible. And there are very few experiences in life that you can say that about. And to say, and I'd be really confident that whoever stood at that starting line is going to be transformed by the time they get to the finish. And that's there's not many things you can say like reliably that happens. And so it's really, really great. It's a really, really great experience. And so the question just becomes, are you ready? And there are so many reasons not to do something. Of course, right? There are so many reasons not to do something, but it's never the perfect time to start something. And so I would say to people, you know, if you can, then do it. Don't wait for something that, may or may never happen. And it is so transformational that it's a wonderful gift to give to yourself. And it's one of those like win-win-win, which is like very rare in life.
That is a very rare occurrence.
Yeah, like it's great for you, it's great for others, like it's great for the world, right? Like for you as a person, it's great for those around you, it's great for those that you touch in a broader sense. And you can really become, a lighthouse for so many people in so many different ways. And just like there are 1,000 ways in which something can happen in your health, well, there are 1,000 ways you can inspire someone to have great health as well. And so, there's no niche that's overdone. There's always room for people. And how many people, right, do you really need to have a successful business? It's not that many. It's not that many. So, could you find 200 people who you really connect with in the world? Yes, you can find 200 people, right? Anyone can find 200 people. And so it doesn't matter how kind of like wacky or, like obscure the thing is that you want to do. There's people out there for it. And so I think everyone can be a success, and it really it really sets you up for that. And so, whether you're doing it for yourself or you're doing it for others, the benefit will just happen anyway.
That is just so eloquently said. You give me goosebumps. That very powerful. Thank you. I want to thank you for sharing your story with us today, and I would love to give you another chance to add anything else that you'd
Yeah,
like.
so I think that one thing maybe, which is that because lots of people don't complete the transformation of becoming a business owner, and that's definitely part of this journey. And it's like everything, they are skills to be had.
Mhm.
And so, it's a new hat to wear and all of these kind of things. And so some days I sit down in my office and I do business things, and some days I sit down in my office and I do coaching things. And I've had to become good at both of those things. And so it's it's one of those things where um I have never, this I really, really want to share with people. I have never failed as much at starting my business as I have done. That has been the biggest failure of my life, and therefore, and then biggest success of my life. Like I got it so wrong, and I tried so many things, and I thought it would be this. Like my number one client is menopausal women, and I thought, like I thought it was going to be, I was going to get into men's health. That was what I originally started with. And so,
Yeah.
I couldn't have predicted. And so the way that I got to the answer and the way that I got to understanding what it is that I was really here to do was by failing, was by trying and failing and learning. And
Yeah.
so I could have never predicted that this is what it was going to look like without trying to get there along the way. And so my big advice for anyone who's like, looking and thinking, if I just design it better, then I'll be successful. Don't just go for it. Like just go for it. Like I just tried and I tried and I tried and I tried. And it's painful, right? It's painful, when you're not used to failing at something and you're looking at it. But it was absolutely the right answer. And, it's the stepping into the entrepreneur's mindset of, like just trying to be flexible and not taking it all personally when something doesn't go very well. And so that's been a big kind of like post-graduation part of the journey that again I didn't realize was going to test me so much, and it tested me as a person. And there are many times where I would have uh, quit, and I could have quit, and I thought about quitting, and and it's taken a while. But I graduated in September of last year, and which isn't that long ago actually, right? And yeah, and but it's taken me a huge amount of the last year of trial and error and innovation and so if you don't have the answer now and it feels like um and it feels like you're not going to get there, well, I would just say like just try and see what happens. And there are so many, the biggest thing that I did was to find someone that I thought was my ideal client and was to go and coach them. And then to see if it worked. And then when it worked, then I was able to say to myself, okay, well, at least I know this part works and I can be confident. How do I find more people like that? And how do they find me? And one of the biggest lessons, there are many lessons, right? There's, 100 lessons that I've learned through this. But one of the really transformational things that one of my clients said to me was the seeker seeks the teacher should not seek the seeker. And so I was really worried about what it is that I was saying. When you're talking you're talking publicly and on the internet, and I was really fearful of like backlash of, if I say something like too controversial, what's someone going to say to me? And the one of the best things I ever did for my business was just to be 100% authentic about what it is that I do. And that has allowed me to find the seekers so much more easily because they know exactly what they're getting when they come to me. And so that's been absolutely amazing. And so, yeah, there was a lot of time of self-editing and should I say this and shouldn't I? And it's exhausting. It's literally exhausting. And so now it's become so much simpler to just be authentic, and that takes a lot of bravery and courage, but everyone has that in them.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. That is so important for people to know and something that I think is often forgotten or lost in the mess of the content and the curriculum and all of the things you learn.
Mhm.
But underlying it all is be authentic and try. And that is just
Yeah,
so, thank you. Yes.
yeah, good summary. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, thank you so much again, David, for speaking to us. We are so grateful to have you as part of our FMCA international community. Thank you.
you're very welcome. Pleasure.